Welcome back. All right, so UFAs, RFAs, I've got both on the board. These are for next summer, so 2024, and it's an interesting group. It is a very interesting group. There are 4 RFAs on the board. There are 14 UFAs. So we'll go ahead and jump in with Elias Pettersson. Pettersson's an interesting one that he's a restricted free agent next summer. He got 102 points for the Canucks this year, so really, really good season for him. He's fully healthy and showing he should be a 100-point player for a while. Be very surprised if he doesn't get 100 points again this year. His cap hit is $7.3 million. He's going to get paid. The starting price would seem to be in the $10 million range, and it should be. He is a dynamic forward, and the Canucks want to sign him to a long-term extension. There will be a lot of eyeballs watching this to see, does he sign an 8-year extension with Vancouver? Does he sign a shorter-term deal that might be a lower cap hit? Whatever happens there's going to be a lot of people watching because, again, it's a Canadian team trying to hold on to a player long-term. They were able to do that with Hughes. I think they can do that with Pettersson as well, but we'll see. Until that contract gets signed, there'll be some uncertainty as to whether or not, is he going to sign? Is he going to sign? I've seen a lot of articles. Will he sign long-term? Then we get into the UFAs, we get into Toronto. So a couple of big Toronto names here. You've got Nylander, you've got Matthews. Nylander, 87 points. Matthews, 85 points. But Matthews is going to draw a larger number than Nylander. We know this. There's more to Matthews' game than just the points. Of course, he's good defensively. He does, as a center, he takes faceoffs. He more runs his line than Nylander would on the wing. So Nylander's cap hit is $6.96 million. And there's a lot of talk about him wanting in the $10 million range. And you can make that argument. With salary cap going up, with some salaries where they're at, Nylander is going to be worth more than a roughly $7 million a year cap hit. And then you've got Matthews. His cap hit, $11.64 million. Now, for the 85 points and the 40 goals he had, that's pricey. However, we know what he can do. We know he could bounce back this coming season and end up with 50-plus goals. He could hit 60. He's done it before. So Matthews is really the jewel in this free agency market next year, right? I don't see him getting to free agency as a Maple Leaf. I really don't. If Matthews decides, well, I'm not going to sign in Toronto, they'll trade him. They're not going to lose him for nothing. And then all the discussion of where he would go and how that would look, we would have at that time. I do think Matthews wants to stick around. I think Nylander does as well. But I think for the Leafs, they're going to be in tough because those two right now combined for a cap hit of roughly $18.5 million. And I think it's going to cost more than $18.5 million to sign the two players. So by that virtue, I think it becomes very difficult to hold on to them and then balance out the rest of the roster behind them. The criticism of the Leafs has been they spent too much money on that core four. And I think that they're going to have to make some tough decisions over the next 12 months. Steven Stamkos, 84 points. Yep, he's a UFA. This channel's existed through the entire contract of Steven Stamkos because the first summer that I was making videos, Stamkos was going to market. There was a lot of talk about him going to Toronto to the point that when I said that wouldn't make any sense, I was told I was wrong. But he signed in Tampa, and he signed for a cap hit that was below what Toronto was rumored to be willing to offer him. $8.5 million cap hit for Stamkos. But imagine if they had signed Stamkos, how different the whole hockey world could have looked, both in Tampa, in Toronto, and then by virtue of, then they wouldn't have signed Tavares, and who knows what happens from there. So if Stamkos gets to market this coming summer, I don't think we'd see the crazy amount of speculation that we saw going into that last contract, where he stayed in Tampa Bay rather than going somewhere else. But there would still be a lot of interest. And a guy who's got a couple of Stanley Cup rings, has played for a long time and shown that he can score goals in bunches. Then you got Pavelski. I don't think Pavelski's going to play anywhere that's not Dallas. He's signing year by year. So I would expect that if he gets off to a good start, he had 77 points this year. He has a $3.5 million cap hit this year because it's not about the money. It's about trying to help Dallas win. I would think if he has another really good first half of the season, then early in January, we probably see him sign another one-year extension with the Dallas Stars. Pavelski just seems to get better as he gets older. It definitely helps having him with Hintz and Robertson. And as long as those guys are playing with him, I think he's going to want to stay in Dallas. It's a pretty good relationship for him and for the team. Tyler Toffoli. So the recent acquisition from the Flames, 73 points for him this past season, $4.25 million cap hit. And for 73 points, that's a bargain. Toffoli was an absolute bargain for the Flames. Now he becomes a bargain for the New Jersey Devils. If he can get close to the totals that he put up in Calgary this past year, yeah, New Jersey's going to be pretty darn happy. They'll be very much over losing Tatar and whoever else may have had to go in this offseason for New Jersey. I think with Toffoli, this is a team that's pretty solid in that top six. And if, say, Nemitz comes up and plays really well on the blue line, who knows what New Jersey might be able to do this year. But Toffoli will be looking for a raise, I would think, on that $4.25 million. Brandon Montour kind of came out of nowhere this year, ends up with 73 points, and then played very well in the playoffs. So Montour has earned himself quite the hefty raise on that $3.5 million cap hit for this coming season. Now, I would think Florida tries to hold on to him. I would think it's in his best interest to stay in Florida. It has absolutely helped his game. So by that virtue, he probably won't get as much as he might get on the free agent market. But I would think it'll be a long-term extension for Montour to stay in Florida. Jake Gensel, 73 points for him this past season as well. $6 million cap hit. I would be kind of surprised if Gensel doesn't sign an extension. He will get more money than that $6 million cap hit on his next contract. But I don't see him leaving Pittsburgh. I'd be very surprised to see Pittsburgh let him go to market and not re-sign him. Rasmus Dahlin. Dahlin's going to get a raise too. 73 points this year. Now, he started off at a historic pace, and we knew he wasn't going to keep that up. We knew he wasn't going to end up, having this record number of goals for defenseman or anything, but he had quite the start to the season. 73 points is remarkable. His $6 million cap hit. Again, he's a restricted free agent this coming summer. I think they get that done over. I'd be kind of surprised if they don't get Dahlin signed to an extension over the next few weeks. It's in Buffalo's best interest to keep him around a long time. And then Owen Power, you got to keep him around a long time as well. And then your defense is kind of set for at least the next decade. Dahlin and Power are that good. Now we get over to the second column. You got Marty Necas. He's a restricted free agent as well. 71 points for him this season, a $3 million cap hit. The $3 million cap hit is a bargain. He'll get a raise next summer. He did have his quiet points during the season as well. I do wonder how much more of a raise he gets, but again, he can score 70 points. He can score 30 goals. He's going to earn some money in the NHL. Mark Scheifele. So one of the ones who may get moved this summer, and that Winnipeg Jets logo may not be the one that's next to his name when the season gets started. But 68 points this year, it does undercut the 42 goals a little bit. But still, Mark Scheifele, 40-goal season for the first time in his career, and really solid season overall. Maybe you want a few more points, but seriously, at a cap hit of $6.12 million, again, that's a bargain. Scheifele will likely want a raise on his next contract. And it will probably not be with the Winnipeg Jets. At least it seems like that's the way that the wind's blowing right now. But for Scheifele, I think a fresh start would be great for him. And I think the Jets, with a reset, that could help them as well. So it might be mutually beneficial. Matt Zuccarello, another player I'd be really surprised to see leave because his 67 points are in part because when you play with Kaprizov, you're going to get chances. So Gensel playing with Crosby or Malkin, very beneficial there. And I think for Zuccarello, the players he's been playing with, along with like what Pavelski gets in Dallas, these guys know, veterans know. And so Zuccarello's $6 million cap hit, that cap hit probably comes down on the next contract. Minnesota is in a difficult cap position, and I can't see Zuccarello, taking the most money he could possibly make and go somewhere else if he can take less money in Minnesota and have a chance to win and get more points on the line with Kaprizov. That has to be a lot of fun, playing with Kirill the Thrill. Sam Reinhart is UFA next summer. 67 points for him. His cap hit $6.5 million. That's probably about where his next contract ends up as well. Again, I would be surprised to see the Florida Panthers lose key players in free agency, which is odd because there was ages where it felt like anytime a guy wanted real money, Florida wouldn't make that offer and wouldn't keep the player. But now they've got an owner committed to putting the best product on the ice. The attendance definitely has come up, so the money's coming in, and so they'll be able to pay guys like Montour and Reinhart to stick around. Sebastian Aho. So this is where the Mark Bergevin signed deal comes to an end. UFA status for him, 67 points. I really look at Aho's numbers, and I think he's so much better than his points. But $8.46 million cap hit. That was designed that way when Montreal signed it. So he's a UFA this summer, and that was how Montreal set that up too, to walk him to free agency, make sure the cap hit was one that the Canes would have a hard time matching and making work, but they did make it work. They did match, and they waited the maximum amount of time before matching to kind of put the screws to Montreal, and then they turned around and signed Kotkaniemi the following summer. So Aho, I can't see him leaving Carolina. I'd be just quite surprised. That $8.46 million cap hit, that's right about fair, I think, again, looking at the 67 points. Chandler Stevenson, UFA, 65 points, and look at his cap hit, $2.75 million. At the time he signs it, it was like, yeah, that seems fair, and now, what a bargain. So this contract has aged quite well for the Vegas Golden Knights. Stevenson, a big role in them winning the Stanley Cup this year, and as we saw with Adin Hill, as we saw with Barbashev, when you win a Stanley Cup, your asking price is going to go up. Your asking price is going to go a little bit higher, and you'll get it. And Stevenson could easily double. And I'm just saying double as a conservative estimate. He doubles this. He's at $5.5 million for his cap hit. For 65 points for everything Stevenson does, that would still be a bargain. So this is something Vegas can definitely take advantage of. I think they have taken advantage of it. And it's one thing that we don't talk about is players that are on really good bargain contracts that allow the team to then go out and spend more money than they otherwise would have. Elias Lindholm, he's a UFA. We talked about him in a video this morning. 64 points for Lindholm. His cap hit $4.85 million. Yes, I think Lindholm gets a raise. I don't know if Lindholm's in Calgary once we reach September, October. I think that if he is determined to not sign in a long-term extension in Calgary, it's in their best interest to make the trade before the season starts. Don't wait until the season's rolling. Make that trade when the season starts or before the season starts and have that opportunity to make your team better. Now, the fact that half the league is at the cap already, that makes making trades a little bit more difficult, and I'm sure that that's why we've seen things really slow down with trade talks around the National Hockey League. See, and if I say that enough, a big trade happens, and then I turn around and go, see, made a big trade happen. Now, two goaltenders I wanted to talk about. First off, Connor Hellebuyck, UFA. 37 wins this year for the Jets, .920 save percentage, arguably one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. His cap hit, $6.16 million. You look at Bobrovsky's $10 million cap hit. If I was Hellebuyck, I'd be looking at Bobrovsky's cap hit and thinking to myself, I should at least get 9 then, right? So Hellebuck's going to get paid. Whether or not he's still a Jet this fall remains to be seen. It's pretty clear that he doesn't want to stay with the Jets past this contract. I know there's a lot of talk about guys just don't want to play in Canada. I really feel like this is something that's involving Calgary right now and the Jets. And then there's DeBrincat in Ottawa. But generally, teams in Canada haven't had a really hard time signing guys this summer. It just feels like with the Jets, there's probably been locker room issues for years, and they want out. They want a chance to try somewhere else. These guys have been with the Jets for a long time. In the Flames case, I think there was some damage done with Sutter in that locker room, and I think Craig Conroy's really going to cross his fingers that with a new coach, with a new direction, and with some new energy in the overall organization, that might convince some players to stick around. So until all those players are traded, we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. And then we round things out with Carter Hart. Carter Hart, restricted free agent. I think he's a good goaltender. 22 wins, a .907 save percentage. And he had that .907 save percentage behind a Philadelphia defense that had its share of struggles. We know this. $3.98 million cap hit. Honestly, I would be surprised if Carter Hart doesn't get an extension from the Flyers starting at $5 million a year. I would think $5 million per season, maybe for 3 years. If they decide to sign him for a longer term, the cap hit probably ends up going up a little bit. But yeah, I think Carter Hart is essential to the Philadelphia Flyers because I do understand that there are people who don't like Hart and don't think he's a good goaltender. There's nothing I can say to those people to convince them otherwise. But I think Carter Hart is a good goaltender who has the potential. He has the potential to be a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. He's not there yet, but he could be. So it's in the best interest, I think, of the Flyers to keep him around. And if they can get him signed on a long-term deal at a reasonable cap hit, probably should get it done. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. I apologize for any other free agents that I missed. For instance, Matty Beniers is an RFA next summer, but I don't think Seattle's going to have any problem keeping him around. And there are others, but I had to restrict it to one board and restrict it to 18 names for today. But let me know your thoughts. Which of these players do you think gets re-signed as soon as possible? And which of these guys do you think actually hit the market next summer? Let me know your thoughts. And remember, you can leave that comment and then come back to it next summer and say I called it. But if it shows edited next to that comment, people will know that you're probably not telling 100% the truth. And you probably went back and edited it later. We can tell. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.